Okay, we're going to take you through how to create the angled block number 14 here on the problem sheet. Go ahead and zoom in on this to make it a little easier to see which part we're going to make here. So 14, in order to make this an inventor, we're going to come up with a single extrusion, which is going to be what is this front view. So it's going to be 5 over, 1 up, 4, 1 up, 1 over, 2 down. We're going to extrude that 3. So I'm going to come back to inventor. First thing I'm going to do in Inventor is I'm going to start, I'm in an Inventor part file, and I have a blank part file. I'm going to grab a 2D sketch, make sure I grab a 2D sketch, not a 3D sketch. Then I'm going to go ahead and select my XY plane, and now I'm going to come back over and grab my line tool, and I'm going to start drawing. This is going to be that right side, that front view, which is going to be 5 over, and then I zoom out, push around here so I can see what I'm doing. Make sure I'm going to go up at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to come up 1. Over 4, then up 1 again, and then back over 1, and then down 2 to complete that closed loop. I now finish the sketch, and now I can set up my first extrusion, grabbing the extrude button. I'm going to make sure that it's going to select this interior closed loop, and then the distance I extrude will be 3. With that distance set up to be 3, I'm now going to go ahead and start working on what is it going to look like to create this ramped section of number 14. And to do this, I'm going to start utilizing a different feature called a Workplane. As I come back to Inventor, my Workplane features are located on my ribbon bar here in the center of my tools while I'm in 3D model space. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and select all of the plane options, and I can look down through my different plane options. I can see that I have several. I have an offset from plane, parallel to plane, mid-plane, between 2 planes. And in fact, I could use any of these at this point, but I'm going to use this mid-plane because it's probably going to be the easiest because I want to get a plane going directly through the center of my part. So I'm going to select this mid-plane between 2 planes, and I'm going to select my first plane, being the front of the part. And then I'm going to move over to my free orbit. I'm going to rotate this so I can see the other side of my part. I'll right-click and hit OK to finish the free orbit. Now I still have that Workplane feature functioning, and I mouse over the other plane, and as I mouse over the other plane, I get a little preview of where Inventor will put the plane. You can see the plane highlighted in yellow showing up if I were to select this plane. So I'm going to go ahead and select the plane, and what Inventor has done for me, and I'll rotate this back around here, is it has made a Workplane through the center of my part. This is where I can go ahead now, and this is called Workplane 1. I can now go ahead and grab a 2D sketch, start 2D sketch, and then I mouse over the edge of the Workplane. And when I mouse over the edge of the Workplane, it highlights, and I can then see the name of the Workplane where it says Workplane 1. I mouse over the edge, and then I select it. What I'm doing now is I actually have a Workplane that is running directly through my part and is based off of that Workplane. Okay, so I can draw on that sketch, and I can function in the middle of my part. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use my cube now, so I can actually look at my part directly from that front view, and I can now start drawing in the geometry that I need to create that slope. So the geometry is going to run from the top, and it's going to run down to this front edge, and then I just need to be able to close in that entire loop. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and grab my line tool, and I'm going to go ahead and mouse over this top edge until I get that green dot. That green dot is telling me that I'm locked onto the top edge. I'm going to then select that by clicking, and now I'm going to drag my line down to the front bottom edge, and I get the green dot telling me I'm locked on, and I'll click again. At this point, I still do not have a closed loop. Okay, the only thing I have is a line running down here. Now, what I can also do, I can see a yellow line showing up here. What happened is Inventor actually then projected the geometry from this front edge onto my sketch. Because Inventor knew that as I came down here, it needed some type of geometry to work with. So it projected this thinking I was going to need it. I can also come up to this point and grab my Project Geometry button, and I can mouse over this front edge, and I can project geometry from this face onto my 2D sketch. So if I do that, I can then select it, and you see that yellow line pop up right here. Projected geometry can many times become a closed loop, and that in and of itself can be utilized in order to create my closed loop for an extrusion. You can also grab your line and then just draw in a closed loop also. So I'm going to see if this is going to actually work. I'm going to hit my finish sketch, grab my extrude tool, and then mouse, it's already found that closed loop as I mouse close to it, because that projected geometry is a closed loop. Now if I turn and I start looking at my part, it's obviously going in one direction. Well, I don't want it to go in that direction. I'm going to turn it, and obviously I don't want it to go in that direction. I'm going to go in what is called the symmetrical, or two equal directions, and the distance now needs to be updated. So I'm going to go back to my drawing and take a quick look. That distance is going to be 1 inch, and it's the total distance, not the distance in each direction. So I'll go ahead and type in 1 inch, and now you can see the preview of what Inventor would do if I then would say, yes, go ahead and make that part. And that's exactly what I'd like to have happen. So I'm going to go ahead now and hit OK, and it has now made that particular feature. So number 14 is now complete, and I can go ahead and save this as PS14 for my assignment. If you'd like to keep the work plane visible, you can. If you would like to remove the work plane from visibility, you can easily mouse over to the browser, and you can right click on Workplane 1, and you can turn off the visibility. The work plane feature still exists, it's still there, it's just now not visible.